Yo guys, what is up? Max in our last Epoch video, and today we're going over my Explosive Ignite Warlock build. Now, this is a build that I put together that was doing corruption level 400 after the Profane Veil bug got fixed. So it was doing like very well. However, a Discord user sent me a DM saying, hey, there's a bug going on with Infernal Shade. I actually had someone come into my chat and tell me about this bug, and I started messing around with it, and it allows this build to hit negative damage integer cap. You will one-shot literally every single thing in the game. It's pretty easy to set up. So what I want to do with this video is, one, show you how ridiculously high damage this build can be with this bug, but also demonstrate that it's still a good build without the bug, and it can still do like all the content in the game for you. We're going to be going over everything that you need to know real quick. If you are going to take advantage of this bug, which the devs are already aware of and they plan on fixing it, so it's not going to be around for very long, but I do urge you to stay away from anything that has a leaderboard, aka like the arena. I'm currently playing solo self-found on an offline character, so I'm not affecting any markets or arenas or leaderboards while I'm doing this. Just letting you know. But yeah, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Let's get right into it. All right, now let's get into how everything is working with this build. Now, the core interaction of this build has to do with the node Infernal Deliverance. When you first damage an enemy with Profane Veil, you have a chance to cast Infernal Shade on them. This effect can occur a maximum amount of times per cast of Profane Veil. When we put 4 out of 4 points into this, we're going to be able to cast 8 Infernal Shades per cast of Profane Veil, and we have 100% chance to cast Infernal Shades. Now, what's so cool about this is obviously we're triggering these skills when we're in Profane Veil, so we're kind of immune to damage while we're in Veil, and then we're being able to do a lot of damage, which is also insane because while we're in Profane Veil, we're also going to be making sure that we're getting Penitent Target so that any enemy that we touch is going to get cursed. And then we're also going to get a 50% damage multiplier to those cursed enemies with the Infernal Shades. Now, Infernal Shades, if you're not familiar with them, is a fire spell that it latches on to an enemy and does damage over time. However, with the node Combustion here, when Infernal Shade expires, there's a large explosion which deals fire damage to nearby enemies. Now, the reason that this build is causing so many explosions is because Infernal Shade can only have 4 active shades at a time. So this allows us, whenever we hit Profane Veil, in a group of enemies, if we're hitting like a decent group of enemies, we're casting all of these Infernal Shades. As soon as one gets triggered, that would go over the stack limit, another one is going to expire. So basically, when you're casting Profane Veil into mobs of enemies, you're going to cast all these Infernal Shades, and it'll keep casting, but when you've reached your cap limit, which is 4, you're going to explode one of them. One of them is going to trigger, and this trigger is going to trigger it's going to explode, and most of the time, when we've got enough damage, it's going to cause the other Infernal Shades nearby, if we spec enough area, to all explode. And then what you're having happen is you're Profane Veiling into a group of enemies, and they are just getting wiped out. You're going to deal 50% multiplicative more damage to all of them. You're going to be getting tons of ignites and explosions happening, and we can pair that with some other things to make Infernal Shades deal tons of explosive damage. Now, the actual bug with this interaction has to do with Lingering Flames and Purgatory. Now, Lingering Flames allows our Infernal Shades to last up to 10 seconds if they don't have a target, and the Purgatory node gives us 15% fire pen with Infernal Shades per second that they last, right? So that's a lot of fire penetration. It could be up to 150% fire pen. Now, the bug has to do with when you have Profane Veil casting these Infernal Shades. If you manually cast Infernal Shades, this bug doesn't work. But for some reason, when Infernal Shade triggers Profane Veil triggers Infernal Shade through the Infernal Deliverance node, and you're spec'd into Purgatory, this fire pen per second thinks it's infinite duration. So it casts them basically with infinite amount of seconds, giving you infinity fire pen. is what I've figured out from this. There's no other way that you can like replicate this bug without the node Purgatory, and it only works with shades cast from Profane Veil. So I think it has to be that this Purgatory node is giving you infinite Fire Pen with the Profane Veil. And it also seems like for some reason it's storing damage. So one thing that I'll do is I'll go to a timeline where there's low level enemies. Like I'll do a non-empowered monolith, run through it real quick, kill some enemies with the veil. So here, I'll show you real quick. Let's despecialize this, so it's like just very basic. Put on Infernal Shade, put on Profane Veil. Let's get this casting its shades. Let's get it some cooldown. Grab. I'm not able to get full points into Vampiric Pool. Bummer. But let's make sure that we grab this. You want to make sure that you grab the explosion nodes for Infernal Shade. I don't think this works unless you get the explosion node. That part I'm not totally sure on. But here, let's just go into a non-empowered monolith. And I'll show you what happens here. So we're not going to get a lot of damage to start. Perfect. It's an arena. Literally couldn't ask for better. You're going to see very normal damage to start, but it's going to ramp. So we want to make sure that we have a lot of enemies because it's going to trigger the explosion. As you can see, we already triggered a bunch of damage. We're going to cast our curses so that we get Profane Veil back. Make sure that we're casting into big groups. Unfortunate that that group died before I could get my explosion off. Let's see if we can get a group of enemies there. We want at least 4 enemies. At least 4. Nice. So it did take quite a while. It took until I beat the Echo, but as you could see, the very last hit that I did there was a negative 2 billion. So it's not like immediate. You're gonna need to kill quite a few enemies. So it seems to be storing that damage and also like getting that infinite ignite. And so now, as you see, I will just kabillion literally everything. For the rest of the skills, we're going to be using Bone Curse. Bone Curse, mainly, we're using it for the Profane Veil node. In Profane Veil with Vampiric Pool, this is now fixed. We're going to get 4% of our minion health gained back as ward. And with Bone Curse, we can deploy Bone Prisms. This Bone Prison counts as like minions. And then we can boost up the health of those minions, which is amazing. And then we can get reduced cooldown. We're also using Bone Curse as a way to get Marrow Thief so that we can get Bone Armor on kill, which is good survivability for us. Sigil of Mortality is going to mark enemies for death, reducing their resistances, which is fantastic. And we're also going to get Brittle Bones so that our Bone Curse has a kill threshold. And so I don't have that much like percentage minion health on this build, but right now I'm getting about 10,000 ward every time we do that combo, and that combo is basically constantly up. So if I could get some more, I've been really unlucky with my like rolls, but when I like had full minion health, I could get up to 15,000 ward. So it's still really, really strong. It's just not as crazy busted as it used to be. The next skill that we're using is Chthonic Fissure. Now, we're pairing Chthonic Fissure with the Malatros Spine, which we'll talk about later. The Malatros Spine actually hurts Chthonic Fissure in many, many ways. I don't love it. I do think that there are better weapons that you could use with this build. However, I really wanted to make a build with it because it's fixed. And the way that it works is it summons these, well, you can't see them because there's no enemies, but it summons Flame Whips. The Flame Whips replace spirits. And so everything that says spirits, you can't use. This node, your spirits shred enemy fire resistance, no longer works because we're not doing spirits. There's an Infernal Shade node down here where we detonate Infernal Shades. When our spirits torment enemies, our spirits don't torment enemies, so we can't use this. So the Spine does limit the build quite a bit. I'm going to be talking about other ways that you could use different weapons with it. But the big thing that the Spine allows us to do is summon Flame Whips, and those Flame Whips actually, they do correspond with spirit frequency. The fissure releases spirits more frequently. This is probably the most important node for the whole chthonic fissure setup, and getting of gloom and flames, which will double them. This allows us to stack up about 200 ignite stacks very, very quickly. You're also going to want to pick up Chronicles of Ruin so that we have 40% increased duration with those ignites and tons of ignite chance per second that's active. We're going to make those ignites spread. We're going to make it a traversal skill, and we're going to make sure that those whips are hitting enemies harder. And that's kind of the setup with Chthonic Fissure. You're going to use it as a movement skill. It's going to ignite everything for you. And then lastly, we're using Spirit Plague with the Exsanguination node. This allows us, when we cast Spirit Plague on ourselves, to stack Ignite on ourselves, which is really important because with the Immolator's Oblation Belt, we get +5 spell damage for fire necrotic skills per stack of Ignite. This is a ton of raw damage. It's also going to give us Ignite duration, and mine's legendary with some cooldown recovery speed. We'll get into gear specifics when we're there. So the rotation of the build is that you click your Chthonic Fissure. This is going to be your movement skill. You click your Bone Curse, and then you absorb those minions, and then as soon as you're done with that, use Spirit Plague. Spirit Plague, with the way we've got it set up, will set back up our Profane Veil, do another Fissure, and then back into Veil. This will ensure maximum amount of time that you are in Profane Veil, where you're going to be getting tons of ward and are basically unkillable. And so getting as much cooldown as you can for Profane Veil is a huge part of the survivability of this build. You want cooldown anywhere that you can get it, so that Profane Veil can be up almost 100% of the time. Now let's get into our gear specifics. So to start us off, I am using the Spine of Malatros. This gives us a 65 flat spell damage. It's going to give us plus to our fire skills, plus to our damage over time skills, plus to our acolyte skills. This is giving me 7 into an Infernal Shade, 7 into Chthonic Fissure, and I've got right now 10 into Profane Veil. This is fantastic to get tons of extra points, which gives us tons of extra damage, and it is going to apply Flame Whip to everything, which is going to be hitting very, very quickly. We want Flame Whip to hit as fast as possible to stack up Ignite chance as fast as possible. Now, this build works very well without this weapon. I was actually using before the Mad Alchemist Ladle, which can gives us a ton of extra spell damage, and I rolled crit multiplier on mine. And the other weapon that would work really well for this build is the Ghost Maker. This gives you plus necrotic damage for your damage over time spells, but it also gives you a chance to cast Infernal Shades and area for Infernal Shades and Infernal Shade damage. So the Ghost Maker is perfectly great for this build as well. Once again, I'm just using the Spine because I wanted to make a build with it, and it's pretty cool, but you can still have your Fissure igniting everything without making them flame whips. So once again, you could do some really cool things with these other weapons. Now, the rest of our gear, I am pretty far along on my character, so I do have a lot of legendaries. I'm using the Bone Clamor Barbute. By the way, all of this is solo self-found. I'm offline just playing by myself with the Prophecies, the COF faction. So a lot of my things have not hit good legendary potential, but they've gotten decent things. So I got my Bone Clamor. This is going to give us base ward and ward per uncapped necrotic resistance. Typically, right now with my exact stuff on, I'm sitting at 467 necrotic res. Before I was at like 550, just with some like different stuff that I was wearing. But you're going to be trying to aim for around 500% necrotic resistance to get the most out of this, which is going to give you base ward, which is really great. The next thing that we're using is the Exsanguinous. Now, you can get away without this. I just found that it helped my survivability. You really want to find one with LP and then hit minion health on this. Either minion health or percentage increased health. The reason we're using Exsanguinous is because it's going to give us more base survivability. We do get a lot of ward when we are not in, or when we're Profane Veiling. However, I found that when I had Veil on cooldown and I didn't have a decent amount of base ward, I was just getting chunked. And so I've added Exsanguinous to the build so that in the time between veils, it felt like I had more survivability, and so that is really great for us. My amulet's pretty garbage. I've got minion health is a big priority, fire damage, poison res, physical resistance, and some necrotic damage. Necrotic damage is just a sealed affix, but you're really looking for minion health, fire damage, fire pen, and resistances. Ideally, you can sneak in a necrotic resistance on something like this. For my rings, I've got my intelligence, minion health, double rolled necrotic resistance, crit strike avoidance, and crit chance ring. This thing's fantastic. I really, really love this. And we're also going to be using the Ashes of Mortality, which gives us a chance on hit to gain ward per ignite and damned on the target, and 30 ward per ignite and damned on you. With the Immolator's Oblation, this is actually giving us quite a bit of ward, and you can actually use 2 of these. If you want to, you can get 2 Ashes of Mortality. However, we really need to stack minion health on this build is one of the biggest things that'll lead to more survivability, and I used both of my Ashes and didn't hit minion health on either of them, so I just need to farm more. But in a perfect world, you can actually use 2 Ashes of Mortality, both rolled with minion health. That's going to give you a ridiculous amount. It's like 100% increased fire damage per, and the effect stacks. So instead of it being a 14% chance on hit to gain 2 ward, you actually get a 28% increased chance. So it's really, really nice to wear 2 of these. You just need to hit minion health in order to do that. Otherwise, you just won't have the survivability. Next up, we're using Malin's Hubris. This is going to give us 100% of our bleed chance converted to ignite chance. Ignite chance is very great for us, but the reason that this is so strong is because with the Spirit Plague, every time we cast it, we're going to inflict 5 stacks of bleed. With this belt, those 5 stacks of bleed turn into ignite because all of our bleed chance is converted to ignite chance, which this allows us to stack ignites on ourselves, which is going to give us more ward with the Ashes of Mortality, but it's also going to give us more damage. So that's an awesome synergy. I'm using the Fiery Dragon Shoes. These give us increased cooldown, recovery speed, movement speed, fire penetration with Ignite, fire damage, chance to cast Fire Trail and crit, 7% chance to receive a crit, and 76% reduced bonus damage taken from crits. These are fantastic. If you can't find the Fiery Dragon Shoes, I recommend looking for boots with intelligence, cooldown, and movement speed are the real big things that you're looking for on boots. And then lastly, I'm using the Soulfire Relic. If you don't have one of these, you're looking for minion health and like fire damage. If you can get Ranks of Profane Veil on it, it's fantastic. It's going to give us more damage over time. I rolled some health on mine. I was trying to get minion health, but I ended up with health. But this is going to give us more spell damage to ignited enemies, 150% chance to ignite on hit with fire skills and necrotic skills, 60% increased fire damage if we killed an enemy recently, 100% increased armor while ignited, which we are igniting once again with the Immolator's Oblation, and the Hungering Souls stuff you can ignore. I tried Hungering Souls on this build. It's just kind of a trash skill in my opinion, at least when I was messing around with it. Lastly, for our idols, I'm using 4 health and ward retention idols. These are massive. The increased health will give us more ward because exsanguination scales off of your missing health, meaning that if you have more health, you get more ward from exsanguination. So increasing our health gives us more ward. If you're going to use this, you really want to find flat health rolls and increased health rolls. I'm lacking in my build just because I haven't hit exactly what I want to hit on my stuff. But this ideally, you could hit like minion health or a percentage increased health, which would be really, really nice. And then the ward retention is also great. And then we're using 2 idols with increased damage over time while we have an element overload. I'd love to get this other one with health, but this one's got health and this one's got a chance to fear on hit. Don't ignore fear. Fear is a pretty good survivability tool on the Warlock. For our skill tree, we've got Points and Stolen Vitality. This is going to give us more minion health, more health, Forbidden Knowledge for more intelligence, necrotic resistance, and Unnatural Reserve for more retention and more necrotic and poison resistance. Next up, we're going to the Warlock Mastery, where we're going to grab Soul Stealer for mana regen, and we have a chance to gain mana back when we hit cursed enemies. Occultist Mind for more intelligence. Ward of Malevolence is going to give us that ward gained on kill, but we're mainly going over here to get ward decay threshold per 1% necrotic resistance. This is a fantastic node. Doom Herald, less damage taken while channeling, more damage while to damned enemies while channeling. We're just not really damning enemies. We could spend a bunch of points there, but I just ended up not going here. You could absolutely spend those points there. I just am not spending them at the moment. We've got more points into Harrowing Armor for more armor per curse on target, and ward per second, less damage taken per curse on target. Once again, we are cursing quite a bit on this build. We've got Bone Curse going. We've got Sigil, which is Mark is another curse. We've got Penitent Tangent, which is another curse. We do have quite a bit of actual curses on this build. Spirit Plague, once again, is also another curse. So we are taking a pretty good advantage of these curse nodes. Then we got Infernal Lash for more Ignite chance. The Ashen one for the Witchfire. Witchfire is actually pretty solid. It's not going to like one-shot things for you, obviously, but it does do really great base damage. It's, I think, like 10 times the base damage of one stack of Ignite. It can only stack once, so you can apply more Witchfire, but it helps us, and you're going to want to grab even more like damage over time to scale it. This is going to give us more Witchfire damage. And Witchfire spreads more often. We're spreading Witchfire basically all the time. Chance to gain haste on kill when we kill a cursed enemy. We're going Aspect of Death so that we get increased health. This, once again, helps us with our base ward with Exsanguination, and it gives us the chance to apply Damned on ourselves. Remember that Ashes of Mortality is going to give us more ward if we have more Damned on us, so that's really important node there. A Cursed Seer is going to give us increased cast speed and more increased cast speed for curses. Spirit Plague is what is giving us the Profane Veil cooldown, so we want to be able to cast it as fast as possible so that we can get Profane Veil back as fast as possible. And then in the Lich Tree, I maxed out our Intelligence, our Mana Regen, and almost maxed out Dance with Death for the increased damage while we're at low health. This is going to give us increased all of our damage, and we're constantly at low health on this build because we are a low health build. We do get some health back just accidentally walking over potions and stuff like that, but I don't actually have any leech or anything like that on this build. Guys, that is going to do it for the video. I hope you enjoyed. Once again, you can find a link to my loot filter and also the build planner down in the description. And I hope you enjoyed the video. I'll catch you all in the next one, guys. Take care. Peace.